and the MXT has been very successful in minimizing the interference from those towers, allowing us to go in and hunt where we might not otherwise be able to. Now let's explain some of the benefits of the relic hunting program in the MXT. Bob, can we turn it on and we'll discuss the 3-function trigger switch.
The normal position is in the middle position. The machine operates normally in a mixed mode audio mode, meaning when you go over the target of an iron target, you get a low pitched sound. Non-iron target, you will get a high pitched tone. Okay.
If you can picture the cone-shaped signal coming out of a metal detector, the high tone is only going to be responding for the targets that are inside that cone, whereas the mixed mode is going to give you some target response for the ones that are slightly outside. That all translates into more depth. So the mixed mode is going to be the program that you would want to use when you're in a field and you don't really know what's there. You're trying to cover a little bit more ground.
One nice thing about the mixed mode, and I'll show you, we have a buckle, which is obviously non-ferrous, part of a buckle, and an iron object. Now they are proportioned in size, and you notice if they are both run over the target at the same time, or the loop at the same time, the high pitch prevails rather than the low pitch. That means you can actually pick out your good targets amongst your trash. Another example is a nail and a button. You'll notice alone the nail is low tone, the button high tone, but together you get the high tone.
So to summarize the mixed mode function, you get better depth, but all targets are heard, which is a good thing when you're relic hunting. If you push the trigger to the forward position, you go to an alternate relic mode that only allows you to hear the targets that you've decided to hear. The iron will come out silent. Whereas if you go over it with targets that are accepted, you will get the high tone. An additional feature when you're in the alternate trigger forward position is if you turn your dual disc control all the way to 0, you have a ferrous, non-ferrous toggle. Iron sounds low, anything non-iron sounds high.
And again, in that position, if you did go up to the normal discrimination, you would get the iron separated from the, in other words, the non-ferrous target will override the ferrous target.
To summarize, the alternate program, you're going to dig in here less junk items. You're only going to hear the ones that you've selected. There's a third position yet for the trigger switch, and that's our normal pinpointing.
Gone over a target and you've decided you're going to dig it. Okay, you squeeze the trigger, which puts you in the pinpointing mode, depth reading mode. Going back slow over the target, you can hear the tone increases to a high pitch. That's called voltage control oscillator, VCO. The closer to the center, the higher the tone. One misleading thing in relic hunting, the depth reading is calibrated to coin or coin-sized objects, meaning if it's a button, a bullet, and it says 4 inches, it's going to be precise. If it's a buckle, which is a lot bigger, okay, it'll read, it's 5 inches, it's reading 2 inches. So you have to be careful on the depth reading. One thing we say is if you dig down 5 inches and your target's still there, you know it's bigger than a coin or coin-sized object. One other capability is if you're used to the older Whites detectors or even the current line detectors, some of you like to detune the machine. Detuning is nothing more than finding the target, okay, holding the trigger in for your depth reading. Okay, but detuning, you hold the loop over the target, squeeze the trigger 2 or 3 times, hold it on the final time, and now pass your target over. You notice that now it is dead center.
Notice when Bob releases the trigger switch, you're right back into your normal operating mode with full sensitivity in the search coil. So you'll notice there's several ways that we can determine the probability that the metal detector is over an iron or a non-iron target. There's yet another that I'd like to point out to you. In the mode switch, of course we're in the relic mode in the center position. If we move the trigger down to the prospecting mode, which is the trigger position closest to you, the display will now read iron probability as a percentage. So Bob, if you were to run that piece of iron or that nail across there, it says that it's a 90% chance that that's an iron target. whereas the button is only a 10% chance that that's an iron target. That's just another way to check and see if you have the high likelihood of it being iron or not. A simple flick of the trigger back to the center position and you're back to your normal relic hunting mode. The versatility in the MXT allows you to gain different information just by changing the trigger switch for both the alternate program and down to the prospecting. Adding to the versatility of the MXT is its ability to accept 3 different search coils. These are the same search coils which are also used on White's DFX machine. The one that comes standard is the 950 concentric coil with the open center that we're all familiar with. It would be used in almost all search conditions until you learn that the ground might require something different.
In highly mineralized ground, you'd prefer the double D loop. Highly sensitive or insensitive to high mineralized soil, good depth, and less sensitivity but stable. And then finally we have the 5.3-inch concentric loop used mostly in a high trashy area. More depth actually than the double D loop, even though it is smaller.
But you'd use that in ground that wasn't quite so bad.
Yeah, non-mineralized ground or so-so, but highly trash area. Also, we recommend using the lower shafts and attaching the loop, buying the accessory. This makes it very simple when replacing the loop with one or the other, where you don't have to get down to the actually changing the knobs.
So to summarize the versatility of the MXT, we have a machine that will accept 3 search coils for different hunting conditions. We have 3 hunting modes, the coin jewelry, the relic, and the prospecting. And we have alternate programs available in each of those 3 simply by flicking the trigger switch forward. So to summarize some of the benefits, Bob, of the MXT, I think we were both impressed with its great depth.
Fantastic depth.
It certainly had good target separation.
Excellent.
The ability to work right beside power lines was super. It's an easy to use machine, and yet it's powerful enough for seasoned relic hunters. I think it's going to be a favorite.
One thing we forgot to mention is the visual discriminator. In other words, target ID. When you pass a button across the coil, you will see the word button appear. When you pass a buckle across the coil, you will see the buckle appear. And again, when you pass iron across, you will see iron. And finally, the bullet.
We're going to talk about some startup procedures now for the MXT. We like to call it the 10-second startup because it is so easy to use. We've taken the adjustable arm cup off so the camera can catch all of the controls as we're discussing them. The first thing you want to do is select the program you're going to use, and of course we're going to talk about the relic hunting program, so it's in the center position. Then you want to make sure that your track control is in the ground position. In this position, it's going to track the ground very quickly. Turn the unit on to the preset position using the gain control. Notice on the display that the battery level is indicated on startup. By the way, low battery kicks in at about 8.1 volts. The gain control that you use to turn the machine on can be adjusted at any time. Now you want to set your threshold control. Threshold control's at the bottom. When you've obtained a slight hum in your ears, the machine is at its most sensitive. If you elect to use silent search, you can turn that just below threshold with minimal loss in sensitivity. Bob, I think you'll agree most relic hunters would use it in, with the audible threshold.
Absolutely. It gives you the feeling that the machine is on and working.
That's right. You can hear everything that's going on. So with your threshold, you set it and forget it, basically. Now we're going to talk about the discriminator control, which is labeled dual control on the MXT. It's labeled dual control because it has a different function in the prospecting program. But in the relic program, we've been running the detector at about 3. It gives us good iron separation and yet gives us the small ferrous items, non-ferrous items that we're looking for.
Once all the knobs are set, the next thing to do is ground balance the machine. This is a simple procedure on this machine. Obviously in the store we don't have natural ground, so we have a piece of ferrite. Lower the loop to the ground, raise it up a few times until it stabilizes. The machine is ground balanced, you're ready to start hunting.
special note to keep in mind when you're ground balancing is if the machine responds